is up, people? It's Captain Trucker. Appreciate you all coming back to the channel as always. I'm up here in Tacoma, Washington, man. So currently they say there's about 750,000 Americans in the Philippines, and it's about 0.75% of our population, I think. So by 2035, they say there could be about 1 million Americans. I think there will be more for a lot of reasons. Just more people are going out there. World's becoming a smaller place. And I think just more and more people just want a different lifestyle. But anyway, before we get into that, or if we get into that, it just occurred to me, I've been making videos on YouTube for about 3 years now. Yeah, 3 years. We've been rocking and rolling, doing commentaries, making videos. It's been fun, man. I like it. I didn't really start getting traction until I started making videos like in 2023, around October. I started talking about budgets for foreigners in the Philippines. I didn't even realize how big the genre was, and I guess in my own mind, maybe I thought I was like the only, like expat on YouTube or something, or at least truck driver. I'm sure there's others, there's gotta be, but yeah, man, it's been an interesting journey for sure. And I think, like when I started the YouTube, for me, it was like, I had so much stuff in my head that I just felt like I had to get out, and I needed like a social outlet, because I started truck driving, years ago when I got my girlfriend pregnant my first time I went to the Philippines, and I came back and I realized, oh my God, I need a new career that's going to let me sort of make money and go back and forth and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I got into truck driving, and I've made maybe 15 or 16 trips back and forth to the Philippines these past years. So it's been a long haul, man. And even the past 4 months, I think I just hit about 50,000 miles since we've been back here making videos. Yeah, and I'm like, wow, I got to go back to the Philippines soon. I'm just not sure when, yeah, it's kind of amazing, like YouTube has, I think like my intentions for starting it was kind of, I feel like I needed like connection, like some kind of social outlet, because truck drivers, they spend a lot of time, alone in isolation and all that kind of stuff. And I never really thought of myself as like a truck driver in my life. But as time has gone on, I've kind of grown to appreciate this this career more, this lifestyle. It's more of a lifestyle. And yeah, social media has certainly helped me do that. It's helped me do this job, and yeah, it's also made me reflect too, because it's not really easy, especially like I was always a really private person, as a lot of people are, and you put yourself out there, and you get criticized, you get feedback, positive and negative. And I think, for me overall, I think it's actually made me a better person in some ways. I think I've become less critical, and it's kind of forced me to like look at myself and my own flaws and my own personality, and why do I say the things I say, and all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's one thing I've learned is it's easier to tear things down, or people or ideas, versus building people up, like being positive, actually being a encouraging positive force, which is actually, in the end, it's kind of the way you want to go. It's what we should all strive for, because otherwise, I mean, there's so much negativity in this world, man, that you go down those roads and it just does nothing. And I think YouTube has like helped me become more positive in that respect. And all the people that watch the channel, I'm like really grateful for that, because it's just been kind of like a social experiment and kind of an outlet for me, and it's helped me, so I'm grateful for it. I really am, and I appreciate the people that have stuck with the channel for so long. But yeah, I mean, obviously I think the Philippines will be populated by more Americans, and by the current rate we're at, there should be over 1 million Americans there by 2035 for different reasons. I do think vloggers play a role in some of that influence, not all of it. I mean, there are some vloggers that single-handedly think they pump in like billions of pesos into the economy and people settle in areas because of them. And I'm kind of skeptical when I hear stuff like that. But yeah, vloggers do play an influence in that picture for sure, because people get to see, firsthand accounts of places and real life and all that kind of stuff for sure. And there's just a lot of narratives, of course, in the Philippines vlogging community over the years. And I think in general, by people that don't understand the genre or don't understand expat life, is I do think there's still in the mainstream probably a negative connotation about men who go and live in these countries abroad like Philippines, Thailand, other places. And there probably is like a negative outlook on that for the mainstream in some respects. For instance, a lot of people just think that a lot of men who go out there are just sexpats, or they're broken down, they're losers, they didn't make it in their own culture, so they had to go fit in abroad, or need a place to lay their head in retirement just to save money, right? And I've always said, like, you should never move to these countries simply to save money, because probably be disappointed. But that stereotype, there's certainly like shreds of truth in it for some populations of men, but we got to face the fact that there's a big pool of us Americans and foreigners that go to these countries, and you kind of got people in different mindsets and different walks of life. And I've made a list of some of them, but I think America is like the land of opportunity and all that. And they say if you work hard, you can fulfill your dreams. And for some that's true, but I guess for many it's not, for different reasons. Like, not everybody has the talent, the social intelligence to really be able to climb to the top and to be a megastar and to be a millionaire and all this stuff. Like, so many of us in this population just kind of fall through the cracks. Hard-working people, truck drivers, for instance, blue-collar people, even people in the corporate world. I mean, there's people that are just forgotten about, and they become disillusioned because a lot of them just get bought into living this sort of like American dream, which unfortunately, in my opinion, has become more of a kind of like a status symbol of success, right? Which is usually deeply rooted like in materialism. So you got a lot of Americans in consumer debt, paying for mortgages they can't afford, and houses and cars, and a lot of them just end up buying into a lifestyle. And then part of what keeps them there is looking down on other people, basically, like in the lower class or whatever. And I just think there's a gap. There's just a hole in people's, soul and their hearts and in their minds. And so many people are just not satisfied. They want to do something else. They want to live a different way. And that's probably a reason more and more people are becoming travelers and expats, because, like in America, not even a lot of people have their passports traditionally. I'm thinking that will change. So we're kind of indoctrinated in this system that we live in the greatest country on earth and everything's great here, and look at those other poor countries. And so we're missing all of these experiences of just different lives. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a significant amount of people that are going to the Philippines and these other countries because they want that. They're soul searching. They're looking for real meaning. They want to be welcomed into a community where they actually feel like they're not forgotten about. There's a lot of forgotten Americans for sure, and the Philippines culture certainly provides that. Being a collective culture, a welcoming culture, not so individualistic, family oriented, and all that good stuff. And they've always been friends of Americans, and they welcome us. And it's something that we should never take for granted, and it's something we can learn from. And so, yeah, I mean, men can certainly start new lives. Absolutely. And they don't need, necessarily like a lot of money and a lot of stress to accomplish that. Absolutely, 100%. And, we talk about a lot of this on vlogs, and it's very nuanced, these conversations, when we're talking about promoting the idea of people moving to these countries and, living like a king versus reality checks. you know, Filipino women are great, but watch out for the scammers, and there's always that relationship there. But these kind of things do need to be talked about in depth. And I do think, like, sometimes on the surface with social media, we do create these campaigns of just these oversimplified campaigns that kind of create sort of a propaganda in a way of maybe false expectations or something like this, you know. And I guess that's just one of the things I've always tried to kind of talk about on my channel with a little bit more depth and nuance and all that, because, you know, it's important. It's important that we, as foreigners, especially foreign vloggers, that we simply don't, you know, pander, right? And I think that's the benefit of these sort of mid-sized, smaller channels such as mine, is that I think in general you're more likely to get sort of the real, right, of people who kind of use social media as a hobby and not a last ditch or simply as their sole source of income, right? Because when you get into that, you are gonna get a little bit more skewed presentations of these places, okay? Or I'm just making excuses for the fact I don't have 100,000 subscribers. No, I'm just joking. No, but really, it's kind of true. And so I do lean towards some of these mid-sizes channels because I like the message better. Anyway, I got off track, but yeah, there's a hole in some people's experience, man, because you get numb. You get numbed by materialism. You get numbed by some of the middle-classish American lifestyle. You get a lot of guys are just, they're spinning wheels, you know. They're just sort of existing, and they're like, what's next? You know, is this it? Is this really all there is? And there's just so much to be learned, like so much enrichment that comes from traveling, man. It's really like one of the most educational things any person can do in their life. I really believe that. I really think, like, traveling to the Philippines, for instance, for me, becoming a father, I really feel like it's really changed my life for the better. I really feel like that and YouTube and all this stuff has actually made me a better person. And I just think it's one of those things that we have to encourage more. You know, like, for the life of me, there's probably reasons why, but like an American curriculum, like an education, like it should be required that people spend a semester overseas or go to these different countries just as part of formal education. I think they might do that like in colleges or something, maybe high school, but they don't, it's not like a mandated requirement. And I think some of that is also just because the system's designed to keep you here, you know, like they don't really want you leaving. You know what I mean? Like, it's, or maybe they do for some groups of people, but yeah. So there's a lot of different types of expats that go to these countries, and it's kind of a mind opener when you start to realize that, you know. And I think more people are becoming open to the idea, for sure, and they should be. Yeah, I mean, trucking, for instance, this is a rough career, man. This is like a rough way of life, and if you're not disciplined, if you don't have a social outlet, if you don't have a community, this job can absolutely destroy, man. And just the way they've been treated by society since probably the 80s with movies and pop culture, and just the way people regard their profession and treat them. A lot of these guys suffer mental health issues. They're obese. They have a lot of health issues. And, you know, I've always been trying to promote this idea even among truckers who watch the channel, like there's other ways of life. Like, you spend your life as a minimalist on the road in a truck doing extremely dangerous work. You're the backbone of America, they say, and of course nobody appreciates you, but you can go places where you are appreciated, and you don't have to work the whole year, right? You don't have to put yourself in debt. You can go live in another country and truck part-time, and that's such a great opportunity, like this career specifically, to be an expat, okay? And we see that in reverse, because you see a lot of immigrants come to America and they'll take these trucking jobs, and that's why there's a lot more, you know, immigrants and foreign nationals like doing this job. But I think more of us are starting to realize, like, hey, you know, there's people like Captain Trucker, there's these other guys, and I know there's many others out there, they're just not on YouTube, but they work part of the year, they go to Asia. and you have that balance then to where you don't have to be in the full-time grind. I mean, this job, I couldn't imagine driving 12 months straight. I mean, lately I've been doing like these 5-6 month tours the past couple of years, but I really believe that's only because I'm on YouTube that it's helped propel me, that I've had a hobby on the road, because otherwise, my mind would just spin, especially if you get on something negative or go down some negative road. I mean, this job can be brutal, man. So anyway, that's my speech for the day. I appreciate everybody who watches. I really do. It's funny because this guy on the freeway the other day was waving me down. I thought it was an emergency, like there was something wrong with the truck, right? Or usually like when a driver pulls up on you, it's because you cut him off and he wants to flip you off or something. But so I kind of, cautiously looked at the fella, and he was like pointing at his phone, and he kind of smiled and he waved, and I was like, oh, maybe he's, I don't know. I had no idea what it was. And I was like, a small part of me was like, I wonder if he's seen the channel. And I was like, no, it's not that big. I'm out here in the middle of the desert in New Mexico. But sure enough, a couple hours later, I get a message on the channel. He's like, yeah, I was that guy waving to you, rock and roll, man. I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. So it's nice to see that, man. I appreciate everybody's feedback and support. So yeah, we're gonna keep it going. It's Captain Trucker. Thank you guys for watching. You all take care out there. Be good. Bye-bye.